And we are live. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to She Built It Boss Lady Chronicles. I am Sharita Gaskins Tillett. I am your host, and this is the show where we feature the amazing stories of women who are owning their power to transform their lives. And I am super excited to introduce you to tonight's guest. But I'm going to allow a couple minutes for others to log on. Before we get started, I do have an announcement. Registration is still open for a weekend for me, the Premier Wellness Experience for Professional Women, taking place October 2nd through the 5th in Grand Cayman. Registration will be closing soon. Registration is closing August 15th, so make sure you reserve your spot now. You don't want to miss out. So I think we will go ahead and get started. So I have joining me tonight Vinitia Strong-McDonald. She is a visionary leader, mentor, and advocate whose impact spans financial services, community engagement, and professional development. With over 2 decades of experience, Venetia has shaped countless careers, serving as a mentor and guide to young women aspiring to make their mark in business and community development. She takes pride in cultivating talent, sharing her knowledge, and creating opportunities for the next generation of leaders. Many professionals credit her as an integral force in their development, recognizing her ability to nurture potential and push individuals towards excellence. Venetia is a graduate of Cardinal Stritch University with a Bachelor of Science in Business Management, and she also holds a certificate in Community Development Finance from the University of New Hampshire. Her career includes strategic consultant roles at BMO Harris Bank and JPMorgan Chase, as well as a pivotal position at Northwestern Mutual, where she develops strategies for client engagement and financial growth. Beyond the corporate world, Venetia is a pillar of her community, actively leading neighborhood revitalization efforts. Known as the mayor of Olive Street, she works closely with city officials, including her alderperson, to advocate for safety, equity, and economic growth. Her commitment to community progress has been spotlighted on My Block by TMJ4 News, further cementing her reputation as a trusted leader and change maker. Her influence extends into health equity advocacy, where she serves as a member of the Alzheimer's Association Health Equity Committee and an Alzheimer's Association ambassador. She passionately raises awareness, supports caregivers, and fights for increased research funding. Inspired by her personal experience caring for her sister Darlene, Venetia has taken her advocacy to Capitol Hill, working alongside Congresswoman Gwen Moore to advance legislation supporting Alzheimer's research and treatment. Welcome, Venetia.
Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to be on the platform today. I really appreciate it. And, just looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you for the work that you're doing, the very necessary work in the community and especially with the Alzheimer's initiatives that you are part of. So I usually like to start these conversations just by getting to know you a little bit. What's your background? Because you've made some interesting twists and turns in your professional endeavors. And so it seems that you started off in business and finance but now have a pretty solid role in advocacy. So tell me a bit about your journey.
Sure. My whole career, I've been in banking at various banks within Milwaukee, and I've worked in what's called community reinvestment. That's CRA, and that is a regulatory act that tells banks that they have to give back to the community. So it's like philanthropy, volunteerism. So that really got me connected into the community and doing outreach and just getting more involved in making sure that dollars were being allocated for like underserved and underprivileged individuals and communities. So the reason I got into advocacy is my sister. She passed away last year in March. She suffered with Alzheimer's for 12 years. And so it was a journey, like you said, how did I get to this journey? It was a journey just trying to advocate for my sister, making sure that she had the proper care that she needed. She was in a group home, so I had to make sure that she was in the proper setting that was safe. I had to make sure that she had the correct medical team that was going to address her issues. And unfortunately, I had to fight with Medicare and Social Security to get her benefits because she had worked almost 30 years as a beautician. She was a very independent lady. She gave back to the community. She hired beauticians, nail techs. She even had barbers in her beauty shop. So I wanted to make sure that my sister was taken care of. But then I just found this nagging pain. Like, I need to do something about this. Unfortunately, my sister was not the only family member that had Alzheimer's and dementia. I remember when I was maybe in my early 20s, my grandmother had it, and at that time, I didn't really understand it. I was young, and they was like, oh, she's senile, stuff like that. You didn't know, like knowledge is
True.
power. So I had no idea, what was going on with my grandmother. Then I had aunties that got it. Then I had cousins that got it. Then my sister got it. And so I'm just like, I need to do something. I kind of felt powerless, but I'm like, okay, everybody got a talent and a skill.
Yes.
I need to find something where I can get involved and give back. And so that's kind of like how I got started with the Alzheimer's Association. I just emailed them, said, hey, I want to be an advocate. I had no clue what advocacy was on that level.
Right. So now wait a minute though. But before you mentioned, well, in your bio, it mentions that you were doing community work. So you had some sense of advocacy, maybe not in the Alzheimer's arena specifically, but it sounds like you were already advocating for certain things in the community. Am I right?
That is correct. For affordable housing, for better health care for individuals. Banks give a lot of money to a lot of not for profits so that they can do the much needed work in the community. So my job was making sure I tracked that data and we understood our demographics, we understood our footprint. So yes, you're right. But this was really personal when it came to my sister. That was a little bit different. And
Oh, sure.
I'm not a medical professional. So it
Right.
was a little different twist for me.
Right. But I think the part that I want to highlight is just how often things all work together, and so while that wasn't medical advocacy that you were doing before, it was advocacy nonetheless. And it was a skill that you were developing that you could then use in another setting.
Absolutely. And one thing about me, anybody that know me, all my friends and family, they know I will speak up. I've always advocated for people. I always mentored people. So I will speak up. And like I said, I just could not sit back and not do anything, especially when I saw so many of my family members with this disease. And I'm just like, this is just terrible. I got to do something. You think you can't do anything, like you said, but I did. I got involved. It just takes you getting involved, being a volunteer or an advocate. And I'm also an ambassador to Congresswoman Moore's office. I work personally with her where we legislate for Congress to reaffirm their commitment for funding for NIH so that they can continue to do the research and development that's needed to have medications that are preventative or slow down the progress of dementia or Alzheimer's. Yeah.
So, what has been the biggest lesson that you've learned in this advocacy journey?
You don't have to know everything. You can learn it along the way. When I went in, I didn't know anything about the bills, what we were advocating for. This is my second year going to Capitol Hill. Little me, I never would have imagined that I would have been on Capitol Hill speaking with Representative Moore and her staff, or Tammy Baldwin and her staff, or Ron. I never imagined that, and it was really emotional for me. The first year when I went to our AIM forum, my sister, I had literally buried her 2 weeks
Hmm.
before I traveled to Capitol Hill. So it was very personal and they couldn't believe I was there. So what I did is I made sure I brought up my sister's obituary
Hmm.
because I didn't want them to just know her name,
Sure.
them to put a face with a name, and so that they understood I'm here because this is really a critical thing that needs to be addressed. We need funding. We need your bipartisan sponsorship. I'm here. My sister literally had just passed, so that was very impactful, not only for me but for them as well.
Yes. And then, I'm looking at you, Venetia, and when I think about people with Alzheimer's, I see my grandmother who was, 89 years old. I see my mother-in-law who is 101 years old. You don't look so old. And so I don't see how you have a sibling that would be old enough to have Alzheimer's. So tell me about your sister.
Sure. My sister was around 58, 59 when she was diagnosed with it. Um, I just started noticing changes in her behavior. She was kind of wandering around. She didn't know night from day. She was just doing things that was just really odd. And, she was a beautician. So I had to tell her clients, she can't do your hair anymore. And they didn't understand that. They were
Sure.
fighting. And I'm like, something is not right. I don't want her to do your hair. And then she put a chemical on there. And then there's a
Right.
so I had to put a sign on her beauty shop saying the shop was closed and take the keys from the other beautician so that they couldn't come in. And that was really hard because I knew my sister loved what she did. She loved her work, and her ministry was doing hair,
Yeah.
and that was really, really difficult. And so I finally took her to the doctor, and I said, something is not right with her. And I just kind of started telling them the symptoms that I saw. She was losing her money, her house keys. I'm like, something is just off. Many people don't understand that you don't have to be 60, 70, 80 to get the disease. Last year and this year, when I was at the AMI Forum for the Alzheimer's Association in DC, there were people there in their 40s with it. So people
Wow.
are getting it earlier, and they're saying that it could be related to stress, diet, lack of exercise, blood pressure, making sure you stay active if you're not doing all this. So we have some control, but some of it is genetic. It is my understanding based on all the conferences that I've been to. They said it's only 5%. That seems pretty low to me, but a lot of people in my family has experienced it. So 5% seems really on the low side to me. So I really had to advocate for my sister.
Yeah. So what does that look like? What kinds of resources were you lacking, and what has been the impact of the work that you're doing?
Okay. First of all, what I was lacking, I had to fight Social Security. You
Mm,
had an evaluation, and unfortunately, she had someone that I think he was racially, you know, and
mm-hmm.
he said that she was nothing wrong with her. And I had to call Social Security and said, "Hey, I'm filing a complaint because I know something's wrong with my sister. She's been at a psychologist. They even said something is wrong." And so they right away got me in to see another guy, and he said, "I'm going to take care of this." And he went in, he examined her. He said, "Benita, you're absolutely right." He said, "She's going to get her benefits."
Mm-hmm.
Have somebody there advocating on your behalf, you don't know how your people are being treated.
Yes.
And that's another reason why I'm a part of the Alzheimer's Health Equity Coalition, because we're about access for individuals, making sure they have proper access to get in, to be diagnosed early. But again, if your loved ones are suffering with something, some type of medical issue, go with them, because the doctor may just be deflecting and just saying, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with them," when really because you know your relative that something.
Right. Yeah.
So dealing with that.
And with Alzheimer's though, and dementia in general, it can be a little tricky because sometimes they seem very lucid and very with it, and and like they are all here, and you don't realize that there's a problem. It's hard for somebody who's meeting the person for the first time to realize that there's a problem. And I think the other reason it's important to have someone go along with you is that they can help to remember, help to tell the story, but also help to remember what was told to you. Because
Exactly.
if you're having problems with your memory and you're at the doctor, and you're not necessarily going to remember what they told you about. So I just want to pause for a minute and say hi to our friend Tawana. She's on. She's telling us hello, and she says advocacy is paramount. So good evening, Tawana. Thank you for being on with us. And if you have questions, certainly put them in the chat, guys. Say hello in the chat. share this episode later on because this is important. How big is this problem, Vanita? How big is it?
Right now, based on numbers from the Alzheimer's Association, there's 7 million people that have been diagnosed. Those are just the ones that have been diagnosed with it. 1 out of 5 are women.
Wow.
1 out of 10 are men. So there is a problem, and 23% are African American. People think that that's a low number, but that's significant.
Well, when you consider that African Americans are 13% of the population, it's out of proportion.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
And so what can we do as a community to help? To help ourselves, I guess, at the individual level, but also to help at the societal level.
Okay. Well, at the individual level, if you have a loved one and you know something is off, support them. You know, take them in to get them assessed. If you know someone that hasn't been into the doctor for just a annual checkup, encourage people to go in and to get checked. It starts with, going to your doctor and asking questions and telling him really what's going on. And then also you can go to the Alzheimer's Association website and you can write to your congressperson, your state representative, and you can say, as your constituent, I need you to support these bills that are going to make sure that there's preventative medication out there. I don't know if you're aware, but the FDA just approved a blood test that's going to show if you got the biomarkers. It will not be available to the public until next year, but that is going to be less invasive. You won't have to get an MRI or anything like that. So it'll be cheaper and it'll say whether or not you have the genetic or if you have the plaque buildup too. So you can do things like that. You can volunteer. You can become a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association or an advocate. Like I said, I'm an ambassador for Congresswoman Moore's office. There's many, many ways that a person can get involved. So it's up to you. Like I said to you earlier, everybody got a talent and a skill.
Yes, yes, and as you mentioned, advocacy is yours.
Yes.
So what do you see as the next part of the journey? Are you planning to do more with Alzheimer's research or research advocacy? Are you planning to expand your reach?
So what I'm currently doing, and I'm going to continue to do it with the Health Equity Coalition, we hold 2 very big public events. We do a Black History program where we educate the community. We usually get about 150 to 200 individuals to come. We have what's called a caring for the caregivers event, and we educate. We have speakers come in, talk to them. We have different agencies like AARP, the Department of Aging, anything that's going to bring in resources to help people educate them. And I'm going to keep going up to DC and making sure that my voice is heard. Not, people often think it's all about my sister, but it's not. It's about my people, for the people
Yes,
that have a voice. Yeah.
yes.
And I
Now
think that,
you bring up a very special subset of people, and that's the caregivers.
yes.
So, and I know you were caregiver to your sister. So why is that population so near and dear to you, and what do they need?
Caregiving can be a lonely road, especially if you're the only one. Sometimes you don't choose situations choose you.
Yeah.
Feel very isolating because, people don't want to get involved. The best thing I can say is support your friends, support your loved ones. I have what I call my board of directors, some of my family, some of my friends that really helped me along this journey. And I can tell you, Sharita, prayer. I prayed a lot. Lord, just please. And I always ask God to use me. And
Mhm.
so I guess the caregiving is my ministry because I've cared for a lot of people in my family. My aunt lived around the corner from me and she had it. And she died when she was about like 92, 93. And she had it. And I helped her a lot too. So support people. The Alzheimer's Association also has a support group. If you go to their website, They have a support group. They talk on there about respite. At our caregivers event that we have every year, we have a room and it's staffed with qualified people where your loved ones can be in the room while the caregivers can be out doing a vision board, having yoga, making sure that they have massages. We give vaccination shots, we feed them, and we just have a wonderful time. So just be compassionate, you know. And as a caregiver, you have to give yourself grace because it's a tough job. There's no right way to caregive, there's no wrong way, there's no manual that you can follow. You have to give yourself grace as a caregiver.
Absolutely. You have to give yourself grace, but you also have to give yourself space.
Yes.
And that's one thing I mentioned to you before we got started that my mother-in-law has dementia, and she actually lived with us for 3.5 years. And it was taking time for ourselves. It's very important, people who are in caring professions and are acting as caregivers tend to be, somewhat selfless, and they just give and give and give and give. And, in the work that I do, I'm always talking about how you can't just give and give and give. You have to replenish. You can't pour from an empty cup, as my friend Tawana likes to say all the time. You can't pour from an empty cup. And so it's important that caregivers take time for themselves. And so when my mother-in-law was with us, we had to make an effort to leave and go on vacations and just have, even if it wasn't a vacation, if it was a couple of days or even an evening out, but just to be able to get out of the environment, to not have anything pulling at you at that time, and to just have time to replenish and restore yourself. And so, and I've seen that over and over again with people in my world, that they will give until they themselves become ill, and then you're not helping anybody.
When my sister passed last year, my son demanded that I do grief therapy. He says, Mom, 12 years is a long time to take care of someone. And he said, and you've been going at it hard, not like really stepping away, getting, like you said, some respite from it. He said, you gotta do therapy. And that was the best thing that I could do for myself, and never in a million years would I have thought that I would have to do that for my sister, but like I said, sometimes situations choose you. You don't choose the situation. So it is important to take care of yourself. I agree with you 100%. And, as people, we need to go and ask for help when we need help. And we need to go to therapy because it does help you kind of decompress because I was totally exhausted.
Yes, yes. And so it's, I always say schedule your self-care.
Yes.
Because if you wait until you feel like it or until there's room for it, it won't ever come. You have to be intentional and you have to prioritize it just like you would anything else.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've thought about this long and hard. I'm going to write a book about my journey, and the book will be coming out. I'm hopeful like June, July of next year. And like I said, it's my caregiver's journey. Your journey may be different from mine, but I'm going to speak the truth about mine because along my journey, people did not show up. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I just want to emphasize to anybody on this call, please show up. Don't ghost people when people are going through a storm. Storms don't last always. We know that. But when you in them, boy, it seemed like it will
Yes.
like it will never end. So show up for folks.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, and even the simple little things, send a text message, send a meal, those
Yeah,
kinds of those, you just never know when somebody is at the end of their rope that day. And just that small piece of kindness, that small bit of kindness makes all the difference.
I agree 100%. It's the small things that count.
Yes. So now, what are you planning to do you mentioned the book, but what else in terms of the community? Because I know we talked offline that you just retired from your vocation, from the banking stuff. So
Yes.
what are you going to do big picture?
I'm going to travel. I'm going to try to do me. I just organized a community block party we had about 2 weeks ago. It was a success. Just really continue to building community in my neighborhood and just community overall, educating people. People have questions. I'm not an expert, but I'm more than willing. That's how I am, to share my knowledge with people, friends that I know that is on this caregiver journey with their loved ones. I'm following up with them and just trying to assist any way I can. And I'm just going to just continue to ask God to expand my territory, whatever that looks like along this journey. Because when I was talking to my therapist, she said to me, my grief therapist, she said to me, she said, Vanita, she said, I'm not worried about you. She said, you're just exhausted. She said, caregiving is your ministry. She said, you told me you asked God to use you. She said, and that's your ministry. And I said, you don't have to say anywhere, because it's true. It,
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, what does community do for you? Because I hear that over and over again in everything that you say, and you mentioned in your bio being the mayor of Olive Street. Why is community so important?
because I think that's what's missing today with a lot of our kids. They don't see the family and the neighbors coming together as families and just, letting them know we're here. This is a safe space for you. You could come to us, and, keeping your property values up. You keep your property values up, your home values go up, correct? Just a sense of community. That's that economic development, revitalization, stabilization. That's in me, to build the wealth and build the legacy for our children. Let them understand. Don't tear down what you have, build it up. So, I want to keep doing that.
Yeah, and I think too, it's important that we understand that we're not here for ourselves.
Yes.
That's one thing that I always say, that we're not put on this earth for ourselves. And as you mentioned, we talked about before, we all are given gifts,
Yes.
and our gifts are not for us. Our gifts are for everyone else. And when we hide our gifts, deprive the world and we deprive ourselves. So, what would you say to somebody who maybe has been thinking about doing advocacy work, but they don't think that they have a strong enough voice, or they don't feel like they're educated enough or have enough resources, but they see a need? What would you say to that person?
Well, when I started, I didn't know either. I got in there and you just listen. I did the work, I did my research, I asked questions. The Alzheimer's Association, they have a great network of people. When you go to the the IM in DC, it's people from 50 states there. It was like, I think over 1,200 people was there. You network with people. People will, try to help you. The internet, ask questions. So you're not alone, just friend people. You have to sometimes let your guard down. You're not expected to know everything. Just like on your job, you get a new job, you don't know everything. You go in, you got to learn the system, you got to learn their culture, you got to just communicate and network with people. So just don't be afraid, take the leap. I don't ever look at failure as failure. I look at it as you go in and it doesn't work for you. You tried it. I'd rather try something than not try it. So you go in and do the best that you can.
Yeah, and Tawana saying our lives and ministry are bigger than ourselves. And I
Yes.
think that that's, I was actually talking about that with my trainer this morning, how sometimes we get afraid to do things, but the things that we're called to do are for other people. And if we can just keep in mind the people that we're supposed to help, the people that we're helping, and
Yes.
that's why it's important that we do what we do, then maybe we can take the focus off of ourselves and not think about the lack that you think you have, but instead think about the people who are waiting for your gifts and waiting for your ministry and waiting for your help.
Yeah. And I used to be a business banker, and we had a guy come in and he talked to our clients, and he said, have you ever passed by a cemetery before? And people's like, yeah. He said, there's a lot of dead dreams out there in that cemetery that never materialized. Take the leap, do it. Just do it. Get involved. Ask questions. Don't let that dream be a dead dream for you. Make it a real, alive event for you. You can do it.
Yeah, and I think, but I think a lot of times we don't recognize the power that we have.
Yes.
We have so much power inside of us but we don't tap into it and we don't use it. We put ourselves in a box. We allow society to put us in a box and tell us what we can't do, who we can't be, what we can't have. But none of that's true.
That's
You
true.
know, we have endless potential,
Yes,
limitless potential.
100%. I agree. The sky is the limit. It's up to you.
Yeah. So if there is one piece of advice that you could give to um, somebody who is on this Alzheimer's journey with a loved one, what would that be?
Just stay the course, breathe, ask for help. And like you said, sometimes you have to take that break. And I know walking away, it was hard for me to walk away from my sister and take a vacation, but you have to do that because you got to recharge your battery. Just stay the course. I have no regret for anything that I did for my sister. I sleep good. Do your best. That's all you can do. Just do your and just stay prayerful about things.
Yes, and take care of yourself because you did mention some things that they said that we could do that could help as far as prevention. You know, things like managing our stress and eating well and exercising, all those healthy things that we all know we should be doing anyway. But you know, you have even greater reason to do it to help to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yes, 100%.
Now, do you have a website or anything like that? I know you said you're writing a book. Is there how can people get in touch with you if they want to join your advocacy work?
Sure. You can go to, I'm on Instagram, it's Vinny Strong. I'm on LinkedIn. You can just put in my name and it should come up. And I'm also on Facebook. You can inbox me and I definitely will respond.
Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure having you with us this evening. I appreciate hearing about your journey and I celebrate you and your determination and your strength and your initiative because, you know, you saw a problem and you got jumped in the ring. You know, a lot of people will sit on the sidelines and complain about all of the resources that aren't available, all the things that the government isn't doing or that other people aren't doing. But you decided to get up and do something about it and to do something for others. So I do applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. And again, thank you for allowing me to be on the platform that you recognize women. I think this is a great venue and keep up the good work. Definitely.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. If you have questions for Vinitia, please put them in the comments. I'm happy to pass the questions along. Check out the Alzheimer's Association. They are really, really excellent. They even have people that are there 24 hours a day. You can call them if you're having a crisis with a loved one or anything. The Alzheimer's Association is there to help. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself to help to prevent Alzheimer's and make sure that you are taking, caring for your loved ones as well. So thank you again, Vanita, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye bye.
Here, bye bye.
Oh, and don't forget, registration is still open. www.aweekendforme.com. Would love to see you in Grand Cayman. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah.